Greetings to everybody. Welcome to all of us to this literature reading session. We've been reading from Talks on Gita by Vinobha Bhave. We are on page 38. This week I was understanding some of the teachings of Guru Nanak, and it is so nice to understand all the great masters and the path they traveled, because it gives us the confirmation that we are on the right path. They're confirming it to us. According to Sant Nanak, there is a beautiful thought. Because a lot of times we all struggle because we look around in the world and we think, everybody is having so much fun and living life, and what am I doing? These thoughts cross our minds. So Nanak gives a beautiful twist to this concept. He says, one who takes life to be the goal, he only wanders in life. Life is only an opportunity. It is not the goal. But for those who take life as the goal, they just wander around in that city of life. But for one who looks at life as an opportunity and not the goal, life is not the destination for us. Living life is not our destination. Life is just a path for us. He says, what do you do with a path? We have to use the path to reach somewhere. So life is not an accomplishment. It is a process. And if you pass through life well, by living correctly and not just wandering around, you arrive at your destination of emergence. If not, you go astray. And he also gave a very interesting thought for the meaning of atheist. He says, he who takes life to be everything is an atheist. That means whose vision is only on the matter, material field. That is the person who is the atheist. He whose goal lies beyond life itself is one who believes in the ultimate. So for that kind of seekers, life is a very transient camp. It is like a rest place where you have to stop, you have to learn something, and you move forward. So that is the true meaning of a householder, he says. He's trying to give us the difference between a sannyasi and a grihastha, a householder, and one who has renunciated everything. One who makes this world as a house is a householder. One who takes this world as a waiting room is one who has renounced it, a sannyasi. So a true sannyasi is one in whom this awareness is there, and this thread of remembrance of the goal and the real home is alive. The goal is alive in them, and that is keeping the goal alive is remembrance, he says. And also he explains that we've been working on this concept of complaining a lot. We've been trying to work on that weakness where we make the intention that it has left you and we have no attachment to it. And Guru Nanak Ji also talks about it. He says that the nature of complaining means you are not a God-loving person, you are irreligious. Because you are constantly complaining to God of what you do not have. The person has no complaints about himself, but he has complaints about others and divinity for not giving him things. And he says a true seeker is one who is contented with the divine and he is discontent with himself, because so he can transform himself to please the divine. I mean, that's a beautiful concept, that little things that we are working on ourselves, the great masters themselves worked upon. That's why they talked about it. So he says, a true seeker, he's contented with what is given to him by God, but he's unhappy with himself because he needs to transform himself to please the beloved. And he says a true seeker has this, it's a natural thing for them to have a deep sense of dissatisfaction with himself, because he feels like you're not worthy of the divine. And we all experience that. We all wonder, like, look at everybody is laughing so happily, and why am I, seems to be like I'm not happy in that, in a deep sense. It is not that just laughter, external happy feeling. It is this inner dissatisfaction, inner lack of not being perfect for the divine. Because you feel like you're not fit enough to adore the word and worship that divine state. And you will be worried if your guide will accept you or not. So, a continuous thought of becoming worthy of his acceptance will be there in a true seeker. This I found that when I heard that Chariji was at one point saying that, will my master accept me when I die? I mean, I wondered, like, the great master Chariji has done so much. Maybe a few mistakes here and there that none of us are aware of in decision makings. But I wondered, why did he feel that? And then when I read Nanak's book, then I understood that is the state of being of a true disciple, a true devotee. That this continuous thought of becoming worthy of his acceptance will be there. It is a state of being. It is not that he made mistakes or he did not make mistakes or nothing of that sort. It is the state of being, even if he is the master, that is the state of being, because they are disciples. That's why Nanak wrote this. Even though he was a master to us, to him he was a disciple. And so even in the masters, they have this state of being of continuous thought of becoming worthy of the beloved. So, what is true transformation? True preparation means to transform ourselves. We have to change in so many ways. If we look inside, we will find that not only the divine, we ourselves are not prepared to enter inside ourselves. We are, in every morning, we wait in meditation for the divinity to enter. But if we look inside, sometimes the weaknesses are there that you don't want to enter your own house. When the house is so dirty, you don't want to enter your own house. How can you invite the Lord? So if we have to love ourselves, if you have to love your house has to be clean. So a lot of times that is the reason why people can't be alone. They can't see inside themselves. So they run out to kill time. We are not comfortable with ourselves. So to attain divinity, most profound speck of this existence enters with us, enters into us, that prana. The divinity is entering into us. And we have to create space for that divinity within ourselves. For the ultimate king to descend into you, that sacred presence, we have to create a palace within ourselves, a palace of emptiness and a palace of meditation. And that is why we meditate. So, continuing the reading of Bhagavad Gita, Vinobha Bhave ji says, 'When So the very purpose of birth is to fulfill this longing. All the great masters are saying the same thing. The comprehensive meaning is that while doing desireless work, one must not have desire even for the ultimate freedom from action, liberation. Liberation means nothing but freedom from all desires. That means we have transcended the earth plane, we have transcended the matter, because only in the matter the pull of the desire is there. Why should there be desire for it when the renunciation of the fruits of action reaches this point? The art of living attains perfection like the moon. Thus, the science and the art have been explained. Still, the whole picture does not stand clearly before our eyes. Science is abstract, art is not so, but it too has to assume concrete form to become perceptible. Otherwise, it too will remain abstract and elusive. Similarly, understanding of the principles of life and the art of living will not be complete unless we have before us their embodiment. That is why Arjuna says, O Lord, you have told me the basic principles of life and explained the art of translating them into practice. We are reading page 38. That is why Arjuna says, O Lord, you have told me the basic principles of life and explained the art of translating them into practice. Still, the picture is not clear to me. Please, therefore, tell me the characteristics of one whose intellect and mind are fully anchored in the basic principles of life and who has fully assimilated the yoga of renunciation of the fruit of actions. This is what Arjuna asks Lord Krishna. Explain to me further. Because Arjuna keeps asking, Gita came into existence. And this is the profound question that he says, what are the characteristics of those person being whose intellect and mind are fully absorbed in the basic true principles of life of Swadharma? Tell me about such a person who demonstrate the limit up to which the fruit of actions could be renounced, who is steadfast in the contemplation of the Lord while working, and who is firm like a rock in his settled conviction, a person who can be called Sthita Prajna. How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? In short, how does he live his daily worldly life? And how can one recognize him? You should not disturb the class with such questions. If you logged in 5 minutes before the class, the chapter is listed there. We are reading from Gita, Talks of Gita by Vinobha Bhave, and the page number 38. So, in response to this entreaty, the Lord has portrayed in 18 verses at the end of second chapter. So, the entire Gita, what Lord Krishna showed was how to arrive at this state of Sthita Prajna. Our entire practice starts and ends at this state of absolute balance. In response to this entreaty, the Lord has portrayed in 18 verses at the end of the second chapter the noble and exalted character of Sthita Prajna. These 18 verses can be said to contain the essence of the 18 chapters of the Gita. Sthita Prajna is the ideal that the Gita puts before us. In fact, it is the Gita which has coined the word Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna, in literal layman terms, is arriving at a state of absolute balance. Later, the Gita describes the liberated one, Jivan Mukta, in the chapter 5, the Bhakta, the devotee, in the 12th chapter, and Gunatita, one who has transcended the three gunas. The three gunas are the Sat, Rajas, and Tamas. In the 14th, and in the Jnana Nishta, one steadfastly committed to the supreme knowledge. in the 18th chapter. But the description of Sthita Prajna is much more elaborate and lucid. This description highlights the characteristics of both Siddha, one who has attained liberation, and Sadhaka, the true seeker. So, for us in the heartfulness method, once we cross the heart region, is when we truly become a Sthita Prajna. Because the quality that we acquire in the heart region is we are more balanced, we have peace radiating in us, we are emotionally stable, and because of that stability, there is courage and there is surrender, a sense of humility in us, and because of all that, there is clarity, wisdom, ability of discrimination, viveka exists. And because of all these qualities, a person remains stable and has immense generosity and compassion in them, and thereby they qualify to enter the next region, the cosmic region of Brahmanda. So, these qualities Lord Krishna explains in the state of Sthita Prajna. So he says here the description highlights the characteristics of both Siddha, one who has attained spiritual liberation. So until you cross the heart region, true liberation does not start. And a true seeker, then you really become a true seeker. Until then, you are still experimenting, you are still trying, you are trying to arrive at those states of being. And now real seeking begins because now you have experienced humility that you are nothing. Here they give the meaning here. Sthita Prajna means the one who has attained steadfast wisdom and whose intellect is settled in a state of union with the divine as a result of assimilating the fundamental principles of life and mastering the art of living in accordance with them. I mean, how beautifully the masters have written this meaning of this word. First thing is, we have to attain the steadfast wisdom. Our intellect is settled in the goal, which is what Nanak was saying, and the remembrance of the goal. Knowing this is just, life is just a path which we are using to walk on to reach our destination of that mergence. So that awareness of the goal of life is there in this person, and they have assimilated the fundamental principles of life and mastering the art of living, how to live, living with peace, living with balance, living with emotional stability, living with courage, living with compassion. These are the qualities of Sthita Prajna. So we have to ask ourselves, do I have these qualities? So thousands of men and women regularly recite these verses of Gita in their evening prayers. If these verses could be taken to every home in every village, what a happy thing it would be. But then they would spread of their own accord if they are first imprinted on our own minds. If the daily recitation becomes mechanical, it would not get imprinted on the mind. So they are trying to educate people to live by the principles of Gita, not by reciting the Gita. Reciting the Gita will not take us to the goal. Living by the principles of whether it's Gita, Quran, or Bible, we have to live by the principles, and that will take us to the destination. If the daily recitation becomes mechanical, it would not get imprinted on the mind. It would rather have an opposite effect. But it would not be the fault of regular recitation. It is the lack of accompanying reflection over them that is to be blamed for this. Regular recitation must be accompanied with constant reflection and soul searching. Sthita Prajna, as the term itself tells, means one having steadfast wisdom. But how could there be steadfast wisdom with subduing the senses? So now they are coming to the solution. How to arrive at this state of wisdom, and what is the role of the senses in this? And that is why we meditate. Beauty of heartfulness method is, without having any knowledge of that, when you are meditating, we are refining our senses. Hence, the Sthita Prajna has been described as the embodiment of restraint. That is, we are taking charge of our senses. Our senses are only seeing the goal. They are being utilized for the purpose of this life, the goal of this life, that is to achieve the destination. Hence, the Sthita Prajna has been described as the embodiment of restraint. Restraint implies that the intellect is anchored in the self. That means the mind's goal is fixed. That is why Babuji Maharaj, with a very simple prayer, has given us the tool. Thou art the real goal of human life. First thing in the morning, you are setting your goal. Restraint implies that the intellect is anchored in the self and the mind and the organs are under the control of the intellect. That means when your goal is fixed on that, all the actions done by this body and the rest of the senses are for the goal itself. The Sthita Prajna reigns in all his organs and uses them in desireless and selfless action. Just as a farmer uses bullocks for ploughing, the Sthita Prajna uses his organs for the desireless pursuit of Swadharma. His every breath is used in the highest pursuit, the spiritual quest. Reigning in the organs is certainly not easy. It is, in a way, easier to stop using them altogether. Things like fasting, observing silence are not really very difficult. On the other hand, as it is quite evident, is not everybody giving free rein to his organs? But it is most difficult to practice restraint like a tortoise. It draws in its limbs completely in its shell whenever it senses danger and uses them whenever it is safe to do so. So, that is the good example. The senses need to be withdrawn into themselves and be in that state, the mind and the intellect study in our goal of that ultimate. Likewise, one should refrain from using the organs for sensual pleasures and make proper use of them in spiritual pursuit. There's nothing wrong in using them to enjoy this world as we are traveling. But we cannot forget the goal. Like the school children, they can enjoy, play, but they cannot forget the goal of passing their test, the purpose of why they are there. This is what the masters mean here. This is extremely difficult and requires Herculean efforts and also wisdom. Even then, one may not always succeed. Are we then to despair? Certainly not. A spiritual seeker should never lose hope. This is a message for us. We should never lose hope. Our thought should be so positive because our goal is right. He should try everything in his capacity, use all his ingenuity, and when he reaches the end of his tether, he should seek the love of the Lord, supplement his efforts with devotion. So, devotion is a state of, a third state, a state of the absolute, because we have matter, the field of energy, and the absolute. Desire is in the matter, love is in this field of energy, devotion is free. Devotion is free of what? Free of the pull of the desire. In the field of love, desire is still there, but we utilize that desire for the longing to move towards devotion. In that state of devotion, there is only selfless service. This is what the masters are trying to make us understand. Even through Bhakti Sutras, Narada Bhakti Sutras, the very first sutra states this. This is the valuable advice the Lord has given while describing the attributes of Sthita Prajna. This advice is given in just a few words, but those few words are far more valuable than volumes of sermons, for the element of devotion has been introduced precisely where it is needed. We shall not here go into a detailed discussions of the attributes of Sthita Prajna. My intention is to draw your attention to the exact place of devotion in the spiritual pursuit, lest we should forget it. Divine alone knows who would reach the ideal of perfect Sthita Prajna. But the figure of Pundalik, who performed his duty, is ever in my mind as an example of Sthita Prajna who is completely dedicated to service. The second chapter ends with the description of the Sthita Prajna qualities, and we can summarize this by the formula. First is Nirguna Sankhya philosophy, is comprehension of the principles of life. Second one is art of applying them in life, Saguna Yoga. The third one is the Sthita Prajna, personification of those principles and master of the art, together constitute the whole science of life. It is bound to lead to Brahma Nirvana, that is liberation, liberation of the self, and its union with the ultimate. What else could follow? So we completed the second chapter of this. And to remind about Narada Bhakti Sutra, it says, Atatho Bhaktim Vyakyasyamaha. That means now the explanation of devotion. It is the supreme form of love towards divinity. And that devotion is in the form of nectar. Attaining such devotion, a person becomes perfected, immortal, and content. And upon attaining such devotion, a person neither desires anything nor harbors any hatred, neither becomes attached nor finds enthusiasm in sensual pleasures. That means he has moved away from the matter to the absolute. Knowing that bhakti, a person becomes ecstatic, silent, and self content. Look at the three qualities Narada says when you arrive at this state of bhakti, devotion, when we moved away from matter to the causal field, our state of being should be there is joy, there is silence, and there is contentment. So if you look at Nanak, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, and if you look at Narada, Sage Narada, all of them are bringing us to the same understanding of the goal that we are trying to achieve in the heartfulness method. And here the masters have simplified it for us, where they're pouring that prana. When they, Vinobha Bhave says that, when the king is entering the palace has to be ready. I don't know how to keep my palace ready. And here comes our Babuji and all our great masters, Chariji and Daji. And they're giving us it on a platter. They're transmitting, by the grace of Lalaji, transmitting that prana, which is purifying our palace. So our mind that needs to be in steadiness, in wisdom, in steadiness in its goal, is automatically moving. Our vibration is moving towards that inner goal. And we are moving into a state of submission because we are receivers. Prayer is a state of submission in gratitude with love. And as we are receiving it, we are automatically falling into that state of humbleness, state of surrender. And because of that attitude of surrender and gratitude, the impurities are just bidding farewell to us, and the palace is being purified. And now we are able to move towards that. And so the restlessness that we have is natural. That's what the masters are saying. Even the great masters were restless in the end because they were worried if they will displease their Lord. And that is a natural state of being for every true seeker. So, beautiful teachings for all of us. Let us now all meditate.